A very warm welcome, everyone. Happy New Year to another episode of Pinaka Live. Today, I am excited to invite Etibar Aliyev. He is an expert on artificial intelligence and specifically large language models and their use cases on healthcare industry. Welcome, Etibar, and a very happy New Year to you.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me, Mohit. It's really excited to talk about the transformative AI in this session because as we have like high hopes for the new year, I think people will be more interested in how AI can have an impact on their life. Yeah, so it's pleasure.
And we are already seeing impacts all across. So I'm not sure if you noticed it, but everybody who was wishing New Year wishes as the dawn comes to 2025 or as we usher into the new year, it was the same similar kind of script, completely algorithmic in nature, and it was so surreal to see it through. So I saw at least hundreds of such posts on LinkedIn. Everybody was using a large language model in order to compose a greeting. Have we reached that far that we can't even have an original message?
Well, yeah, exactly. So I've seen actually many AI enthusiast people like reached out to me or like we had some sort of like interaction through some social websites like LinkedIn. So yeah, I mean, I see like there is a huge interest, like there's a sparking interest like in everyone almost. But some people are worried, some people are really excited because that at some point affect the creativity as well. So yeah, I mean, I do see that, and this kind of like makes me also excited.
So, Adibar, the interesting aspect is large language models is still a word which basically makes people conscious and anxious. So, artificial
Mm.
intelligence and especially large language models is a word which basically people associate with a lot of, uh, in a kind of a connotation where they do not understand what it means and where it is coming from. So, people who are closer to the field, they understand how a LLM actually works. It's all science, it's all maths behind it. But for those who do not, it is a kind of a miracle. It's a kind of a shiny disco ball for them. And especially when you look at it from a healthcare standpoint and the way many of the companies like Tesla, Boston Dynamics, they released some robots, and there were some conversations around, is this bot, can this be my healthcare companion one day? So, do you believe
Yes.
there is enough transformation happening in healthcare, or do you believe we have a long way to go? We have not even touched the periphery. What are your views on that?
So my views is that like there is still work going on. So I would really like to actually delve into this topic and to just talk about that how it is not only reshaping the technology landscape but also profoundly impact like these critical sectors as you mentioned, like software development and healthcare.
Hmm.
So before I really like to clarify what large language models are actually. So
Sure.
we have heard about like LLMs such as like Google's Gemini, OpenAI's GPT, Meta's
Hmm.
Llama, etc. So these are actually deep learning models that trained
Hmm.
on vast amount of textual data. So basically, these models excel in understanding and generating human-like text, which help
Yeah.
them to perform a wide range of language-related tasks. We can talk
Hmm.
about from writing, translation, to coding assistance, and medical diagnostics, which we'll talk about that. So over the years, actually, these capabilities of LLMs have actually grown exponentially. So
Yeah.
starting from very relatively simple language models, we now have very huge systems that exhibit these I'd call it like emergent abilities. So
Yeah.
these skills not only actually programmed, but arising naturally from like extensive training on these diverse data sets. So this evolution I would call has sparked, as you mentioned, both excitement and there is also controversial
Yes.
debate about the potential and ethical implications, of creating such mechanics. This can actually mimic at some point, even in some cases, enhance human human cognitive functions, I would call. But as someone like me, deeply involved in this training of LLMs, I've had actually a front row seat to this transformation. So my role primarily involves optimizing these models to better understand context, reduce some biases, enhance their ability to generate
Mhm.
coherent and relevant responses. So training an LLM is akin to teaching a child language. It's like, except
Yeah.
the scale and complexity are orders of magnitude greater. So yeah.
This is a statement many people will find controversial. So, do you mean tomorrow I will be getting treated by a child?
Not precisely. We are just trying to create such an AI that can help us to, alleviate any kind of burden we have, or even at some point help us to create something new, better. I mean, like improve something better, so that it should at some point. This, final goal is to improve the human life. So this is not to take someone's job, or this is not
Yeah.
to, um, totally elevate anything that's related to the job. So this is at some point help them to be more creative, to be more productive. So yeah.
I see it as an augmentation of skills, and I have some recent examples that I noticed. So one aspect is obviously we all know that the ratio of a patient to doctor or a doctor to patient kind of a ratio where World Health Organization or some of the leading governments, the way they measure it, like let's say they have a certain population, if they have 1,000 people and have only got 10 doctors, so that is like one doctor to 100 people. That's a huge ratio. And that's the story, especially for the developing world, which is basically larger part of the world. Interestingly, there was always this need to augment the skill sets of these medical practitioners, especially in healthcare. So when I say about augmentation, I'm talking about every time you get a medical diagnosis done or any test done, the inference or the interpretation of that report is left to the medical practitioner. It is consuming their time. They are not doing primary care. They are just doing kind of a report analysis for an already existing patient. Now, these are the areas where large language models can be of significant help as we see it. And we are already seeing that there are healthcare organizations which are adopting LLMs, especially for inferencing or summary generation from the healthcare report to say, okay, somebody has got a CT scan done. So what basically should be the prognosis after that initial CT scan that assessment has been made. Secondly, recently I saw it. I don't know whether it was I think it was a surgery of the brain. Somebody performed with a robotic arm sitting thousands of miles away. There was a surgeon and there was a surgery which was to be done, and the doctor could not travel. There wasn't enough time. So doctor used a kind of a mechanically robotic arm in order to perform the entire surgery. And the doctor was using the normal system interface levers like a trackpad and a conversational AI in order to guide. So AI is already hitting those places which are very sensitive. Obviously, more experimentation, more effort is needed. So, what do you think how this is looking around to you? Because this is from my lens, this is what I am able to see as a layman.
Yeah. So, like healthcare professionals, as you already mentioned, spend actually a significant proportion of their time, on such administrative tasks, such as documenting patient interactions,
Yeah.
updating medical records. So, LLMs actually can streamline this information. So, it can update electronic healthcare health records.
EHR. Yeah.
Exactly, EHR. So this not only reduces the administrative burden on healthcare providers, but also minimizes the risk of errors in patient records. So, but beyond documentation, I would call that LLMs can integrate with other healthcare systems to provide real-time analysis or alerts, reminders for follow-up appointments. So I think this can be a huge game changer, specifically in
So you
healthcare.
mean, so I think if I'm reading the signals right, so you mean to say if there is a pandemic like COVID-19 that happens again, AI will have a role to play in order to basically control the spread the way it is spread because there was nothing. It was not even automation. So
Exactly.
even for
So
vaccine management, people had to do everything manually, and it was a manual exercise. Some countries like India, they did very well in terms of getting an application and ensuring people are inoculized and that kind of stuff. Some other applications, they did not work out. They could not take the load of millions of records that. So we are, do you mean to say that this is going to have a huge impact in our emergency preparedness as well?
So yeah, exactly. So LLMs here can assist doctors, by providing these evidence-based recommendations. Let's call about like the COVID, for instance. In this case, this can help to summarize some like medical research. If there is something pops up new, you can basically utilize LLM's capability to research something, provide some recommendation, or at some point it can even give you like some suggestions that you cannot think at that time. Because imagine there is some stress or
Yeah.
over there, and you are not fully capable to deal with such stress. So LLMs can possibly help you out in this case. Even like for the future advancements, I could say that this can enable basically LLMs to basically integrate with the diagnostic imaging tools or some
Yes.
genetic data. So this can offer really comprehensive analysis. I would say that not
Recently, there was
only
a report. There was a report around cancer detection with Gemini, Google's Gemini
right,
Flash, I think. There was
exactly,
a recent report around that, I remember, and it was able to detect it years in advance. So we are
right.
actually moving towards, with the help of large language models and generative AI technology, we are actually moving to a stage where the healthcare is becoming predictive.
Exactly, right. So if we can even talk about like drug discovery, in this
Yeah.
realm, LLMs basically accelerate the process, as
Yes.
we mentioned already, by analyzing the scientific literature or basically identifying some potential drug candidates, predicting their efficacy, like
Yeah.
safety profiles. So basically, this significantly reduces the time and cost associated with that. So but additionally, LLMs contribute to personalized medicine, by analyzing a
Yeah.
patient's genetic makeup, let's say
Yeah.
lifestyle, medical history, basically to recommend like I would call like tailored treatment plans. Probably we have seen lots of such applications, or like companies are developing new ways to do that. So imagine like there is one like unique insight I would like to give. So imagine like LLMs collaborating with researchers in real time and to
Yeah.
just to simulate clinical trials, predict
Yeah.
outcomes, and at some point optimizing drug formulations. So this can be great way, right? So like you just don't waste some time, but instead you spend so much time on the research or like development of some tools. So yeah, this just like basically enhancing the drug discovery, I would call.
Indeed, areas in pharmacovigilance, they can have a phenomenal use case for LLMs because currently what they do is they basically go ahead and try to find out into the research journals or reporting or social media records to see where all people are having a particular drug's after effects and what those effects are and build an association. All of this is possible. I mean, you don't even need to customize an LLM. You go to Google's Notebook LLM and directly
Right.
upload those records and ask it to generate a summary. It can do that. It is just that there will be obviously responsible AI and compliance related aspects that need to be taken care of. uh, do you see any risks associated with the progress of LLMs into healthcare, especially onto the compliance, security, data privacy, these kind of areas? Because if let's say my genetic makeup, my healthcare records, my past records, plus what kind combination of drugs I am already onto and what is available into the market, plus what all times I have been to, even events like if I'm traveling too much, it can make certain estimates around the state of my health. This all data is going to get available out in the open for LLMs to consume because it's more about data. So, do you see that as a risk, or are there going to be mitigations that personalized means even the data will remain personal, the privacy wall will not get broken?
Right. So I wouldn't really call it as risk, but I would call it this will require too much, attention to some details. Like this will require really qualified person to check the
Mm-hmm.
results. So
Mm-hmm.
this will at some point will require some sort of privacy in place, meaning that like as long as the system, follows some privacy guidelines, like the some specific laws. At that point, I mean, I don't think that there should be any risk, but this requires at this point just quite enough expertise to check the results. So I would call that this is actually giving a huge actually chance for those experts or specialists, to be better at what they do rather than risky. So yeah, I mean, there is some concerns around this topic, like some controversial debates about like privacy, etc. But I think this can be handled very well, and
Mm-hmm.
this will at some point improve, this overall process rather than put it under risk.
I also see one very specific touch point, and this is exclusively just one type of AI we are talking about, which is large language models. There are others as well. I'm not even going there. When you look at it, the accessibility of healthcare, LLMs have got a role to play,
Yeah.
big one, because if let's say there are remote corners of the world, countryside, some remote places where a clinic or a doctor is not even possible, but if you can make a kind of a console available which is able to take care of the uh, basic administration of medicines, basic healthcare needs, that is giving some long fingers and arms to the healthcare infrastructure of that nation state, and that is a very big benefit. And we already see there are some startups. I was in Jitex just a few months ago. There are some startups which are exclusively addressing this particular need. So it's nothing. It is just like your virtual doctor. It's like a console. So there is a cut. I'm having cough. Okay, what are the medical conditions? I'm just speaking in my native language to that particular bot, and the bot is recommending me the medicines, giving me a prescription. I take the prescription to the medicine shop and I get the medicine. It is as simple as that. But the interesting aspect onto the security point that you said. We have Pinaka is basically a predictive, intelligent, nimble, accelerated, keen, and accessible. That's the full form of Pinaka. We are doing it for Pinaka Live. Pinaka usually is a finance and accounting product, but we have a healthcare use case as well. In healthcare use case, we are predicting which particular healthcare claim will get rejected or not, and what will be the reason for rejection, so that you can address it without disturbing the care continuum. Okay. Even for that, our idea was that healthcare data or name of the patient, personal details of the patient are sensitive, so it should be encrypted. It should be point to point encrypted. So we
Exactly.
had this awareness. So I think once people start thinking about it as to how they will be using it in healthcare, especially LLMs, uh, they should think in those terms that you can build provisions and measures, as you rightly called out, in order to uh, in order to address the security, safety, privacy risk. Uh, do you believe healthcare will get cheaper? This is what people want to hear
Okay, so
with AI.
well, like I cannot really like give some predictions regarding that, but it's gonna be like much more versatile, like I'd call, and much more easier at some point. Because like because like this basically there is a growing trend like
Hmm.
towards developing specialized and domain specific models. So
Yeah, yeah,
let's say like in healthcare, domain specific LLMs could specialize in areas, some like oncology, cardiology, or neurology, but
yeah.
this still will require some expert, right? So I cannot really predict much about the cost itself, but I can say that it will be much more swifter and like it will be more accessible to some people. Well, it can help generally people, but in terms of the cost, I cannot really promise something.
Because
So
the run
yeah,
it costs a large amount of money to run a LLM anyways today. So that is
exactly.
also partially responsible. So till the time, so I see it slightly differently, Etibar, and I'll
Yeah.
be very candid with you in a very kind of a personalized way. So I see it, you have to see it from multiple lenses. One lenses is the patient to doctor ratio that we spoke about. So if a single doctor is accessible to more patients because of the intermediaries like large language LLM agents or agentic AI, as we can call it, uh, the ability of the doctor, the accessibility of the doctor increases, that medical practitioner increases. So which means you can that same medical practitioner can charge a lower per unit price because they are doing more scale. So from a business model, I see this happening. Uh,
Yeah.
Secondly, I see that a lot of the human element will get realigned. So currently, medical practitioners, care practitioners, if you go across the world, regardless of which country you are living into, they are overstretched. They are stretched beyond their limits because of these administrative responsibilities which are upon them. So their real expertise gets used only 40% of the time, but the healthcare administration related stuff they have to do 60% of the time. And that is not a right utilization of their resource and their skill and their time. So once LLMs take care of these administrative, okay, I will generate the summary, I'll trigger a reminder, I'll do the report analysis, I'll give you in 3 lines. You don't have to go through a 40-page report of a diagnostic scan that happened. I'll give you in 3 lines what is the condition, what are the things, and what I believe is the recommendation, so that you can go onto the specific page and interrogate even more. So once you have this kind of stage, this will have a definitive impact on, let's say, what is the annual amount I am spending on my healthcare every single year.
Right.
And once you integrate technologies, especially with edge computing, with smart watches, which are, and there are smart rings as well, which are capturing your health biometrics all the time, there is a possibility your annual average spend will definitely go for a downfall. However, the caveat is we can't have the heavy pricing of the GPUs and all that in order to execute it. So at some stage in time, more companies will have to set these boundaries in order to manufacture AI specific chips, in order to make it accessible, make it visible across the world, uh, make it easier for people to invest into those assets. And the cloud costs, analytics costs, these IT related costs really have to come down for this vision to become reality. Otherwise, it's just like relocation. You are saving it from one side and you are burning it on another side. Doesn't matter.
So like I do predict that like the advent of let's say quantum computers can possibly make it much more real because that's gonna be the
Yeah,
way faster. So I believe this can possibly help us out. But the integration of basically these multimodal capabilities, like combining text with images, audio, video, is like I would call another frontier for LLMs. Like for instance, in basically in healthcare, basic multimodal LLMs can integrate textual data with the medical
with
imaging.
image. Yeah,
So yeah, so like even real-time monitoring data can happen. So this is just like to provide more better analysis and support system. But when it comes to risks associated with that, like we didn't really talk much about like ethical regulatory dimensions.
yeah,
But yeah, there is a huge concerns regarding bias and fairness. So
yeah,
basically, like in healthcare, LLMs must be trained on a diverse and representative data so that to minimize biases, basically. So in healthcare, like biased models can lead to disparities, but that's why there's a huge, like work going around this, just to reduce bias as much as possible to get like as accurate results as possible. So,
yeah.
but the privacy thing and the protection will be there, as you mentioned already. It will be encoded, decoded, so there will be some scrutinized, I would say, regulations regarding that so that the people shouldn't be really worried about.
Are we seeing AI doctor soon? It's an
Yes, I
Elon
mean, we
Musk
do with
question, but
this,
yeah, I have
right?
to ask it. Are we seeing AI doctor soon?
Right. We do see already that like there is some features of AI doctors, but this doctor is not in the ideal format yet. I mean, at least close to ideal format yet. There is a huge work going around, but yeah, I mean, This can help us out, but we have seen some also issues with that
with
as
that
well.
approach.
But I think, yeah, that means that there is a huge work ahead of us that must be done either by
Yeah.
scientists, researchers, developers, or the companies itself.
What about hallucinations? So do we encounter hallucinations in healthcare use cases as well? So it's a topic which keeps people uh, uh, keep a distance. It forces people to keep a distance from the topic of AI if you're running a healthcare business.
Right. So yes, this happens. That's true, exactly. So it's sometimes because of model or sometimes because of like the text we have given. Like this is called the prompt. If you are given like the wrong prompt, wrong keywords, etc., so you will have much less reliable information than it should be. And sometimes the LLMs can have such things as well. But yeah, there is like a reverse engineering going around that just to decrease the hallucination possible. So yeah, this is possible, but yeah, I mean, this is up to the person that utilizes it and the expertise of that person utilizes either LLM.
Will agentic AI, the way it is progressing, will it be able to take care of the hallucinations part? Because then you are moving into the world of small language models rather than large language models.
Yes, like SLMs, basically, yeah, right. So this will require just like to focus on like to train basically these small agents, like small, sorry, language models, so that like it can act as an agent, so that decreasing this hallucination. So this is more about like the how the information is basically sent out to these agents and how the logic working around. So as long as like the agents are capable of solving this logic problem, then in this case, yes, we will get much more reliable results. That's for sure.
Looks like it is going to be an exciting future we are entering, Etibar. This has been an absolute privilege speaking to you. Thank you so much for being on Pinaka Live. And I would encourage everybody who is watching this exciting episode today to connect with Etibar on LinkedIn, reach out, interact. This has been an incredible experience. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me for this interesting talk. So I believe people will work on that side, like work on utilizing AI for good and also improve it at some point, so that the human life is getting better. So
Yeah.
that's the final goal for us. And
That's
yeah, thank you.
absolutely so rightly said, Etibar. I mean, it's AI for good. People just have to understand it and be open to adopt it. So it's just a mindset thing which is currently restricting humanity from embracing the benefits of AI. But thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for this insightful and rich episode. Thank you so much.